What you're about to witness is I'm Alan Partridge on acid. This is Lee Anderson, and he just got a show on GB News, and I've never witnessed anything quite like it. Whether that was gaffes kept in.
Measure.
Is that a good... Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! He had one job, so...
Weird food play.
There is a spoon incoming. Lovely. Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Over 15 minutes of footage that had nothing to do with the programme, but the editors couldn't be bothered to remove, or not knowing what was invented in France and what was invented in Britain.
Look at the things we've done in the past. We've given railways, we've given technology, the Industrial Revolution, arts, culture, Dickens, Shakespeare, sports. Look at, football, tennis.
Yes, you just heard right. He extols British sports and then refers to one that was invented in France. But this is only the beginning, and it's important to note here that Lee Anderson is deputy of the Conservative Party. But before that, just have a listen to this weird gaffe.
Go back to the early 80s when you were at school. We have a problem these days with school teachers indoctrinating children. We know that at universities, at colleges, the left-wing elite, if you like. But you got into a spot of bother.
Well, this programme has seen a letter about the UKIP leader Nigel Farage during his days as a pupil at the exclusive Dulwich College from teachers accusing him of racist and fascist behaviour. Some members of staff expressed their concern after the teenage Farage was appointed a prefect, including a claim that he marched through a village late at night singing Hitler Youth songs.
Bear in mind this is the 1980s, so there's no internet, so how do you learn stuff like that? Well, it's quite simple. Either you're indoctrinated, as Lee Anderson's complaining about, or you've gone off and done some serious research, because books like that are not going to be easy to access in the 1980s.
Yeah, when I went to that school, and I was very lucky to go to a great school, a private school.
So Lee, having slagged off private schools, which will come back a little bit later, he's happy to have someone that's been to one, and not only that, he's been going around, according to his teachers, saying really far-right stuff.
Rather than speak freely, say what you think, it was kind of a bit of a, well, you can't say that, can you?
Yep, saying Nazi stuff and right-wing stuff and racist stuff tends not to be acceptable in a modern society.
What I was saying was upsetting people. I just kept on saying it and kept on going. But I do think the important thing is always question what you're told.
Which is interesting because whenever it comes to Brexit, we're told we're not allowed to question it by Nigel. After this big thing about free speech, he then proceeds to pull a man almost out of a broom cupboard and attacks him immediately before he's even said a word.
I'm going to bring in somebody now in the corner. We have a token lefty in the corner. It's Simon Danchuk. After all these years, Simon, you've finally got your name up in chalk. That's a great accolade, that is. That's great stuff.
Thank you.
And you'll soon see this level of comedy continues because it isn't laugh out loud. It's laugh at Lee.
Though I have to say, I think it's not been a great success, and it's the Conservative Party who failed to make it a success. I mean, the economy is not doing well from Brexit. I'd be interested to hear what Nigel thinks about that.
OK, you can stop your political broadcast. How would you have done?
Yep, you heard it. The first guest attacks his own party that he's deputy of. So what's Nigel going to do?
The big disappointment is the Conservative Party never believed in it. Some people did, but the government never believed in it, and effectively they've sabotaged Brexit. They've not delivered. There were two things that were clearly achievable and desirable. One was proper border controls. As we speak, there are dinghies crossing the English Channel. As we speak, net migration is now 3 times what it was before Brexit. And the second...
If you watch very slowly, you can see Lee processing this information that he's getting from Nigel Farage as he directly slags him off to his face.
Is for the millions, 5.5 million men and women out there running their own little businesses. They genuinely expected regulations to go, and none of it's happened. And there is this feeling that it's been sabotaged, and it now makes it easy for Keir Starmer's government to sign us back up.
I would think that Lee would challenge something like this, but of course he's not going to bite the hand that feeds him. Instead, Lee asked Nigel if he'd do it all again, which in itself was pretty interesting.
It came at a price. And I don't mind the price that I had to pay. I regret the price that those close to me had to pay.
And then Nigel says this.
But I also had a huge amount of fun along the way.
So you're happy with in your own skin?
Oh, absolutely. I did what I believed in.
I promise you're not on LSD. This is not hallucination. This is just total car crash crap TV. It continues though. We're going to go and talk about ULEZ, and he's going to ask his friend
Gary the cabbie. Gary, I want to ask you a question today. Feel free. About low traffic neighbourhoods and how that impacts you and your income as a cabbie driver.
But the income, not so much.
Every time Lee brings up an agenda, it gets thrown back in his face by the people that he's actually selected to come on the programme. So far, he's had 2 people he's invited on who have then slagged off his party, and then he tried to get someone to tackle you, Les, and they said it wasn't a problem. And in case you're worried, I've not forgotten about this baked bean weirdness.
Through some of the woke nonsense that's been spouted.
Lee, if you're watching this, a book is like a big pile of paper with words written on it. And if Lee ever manages to pick one up, he might be able to go and find out what the actual definition of woke is. But just in case you're watching, Lee, woke means alert to racial prejudice and discrimination. And Lee appears to have a bit of a problem with that.
Wokey of the week.
If you don't remember, he took strong objection to the England players taking the knee, again, because they were being alert to racial prejudice and discrimination. And Lee said he wasn't going to watch the football. Lee likes to do some game show format, typical of the style of Top Gear, but just shit and low budget. Have a listen to the rules and see how he contradicts himself.
3 wokies, that could be people or an organisation that's done the wokest thing this week.
So it's who's done the wokest thing this week. He then proceeds to attack people that attend Glastonbury. He then proceeds to attack teachers. And then he comes up to the final conclusion with
James O'Brien. Now, he's not actually said anything this week other than just being irritating.
Yes, you just heard right. He said,
Now, he's not actually said anything this week.
so the wokeism that he's so concerned about, he hasn't actually been able to find 3 examples that week. And this reminds me exactly of what Marina Purkis said to Jacob Rees-Mogg.
I think they exist because people like you and your party in government, they desperately need them to exist, because what else are you going to win the next election on?
If you think it was a gaffe, here's Lee doubling down on his decision making.
So, although James O'Brien has not done much this week other than be irritating on LBC, does he get your vote?
Yes, we've
Gets my vote as well. So, James O'Brien, you are Wokey of the Week.
If you think you can go any further down the rabbit hole, be prepared to see him feed an adult male.
There are baked beans incoming. So you got in a little bit stick a few weeks back over your comments.
I mean, say the price has shot up at that and people say, oh, this tin has gone up by 50% or whatever, buy the Tesco value one.
No, but
you know,
they
don't
taste the same. But if they don't have baked beans that aren't hard.
Yes, as usual with Tory or right-wing commentators, instead of admitting their fault, they double down with a baked bean test in this case.
Good news for you, Brandon. We're going to do the baked bean test today. We've got some top brand baked beans, some supermarket cheaper brands. So what we're going to do, close your eyes. I'm going to mix them up.
Okay, you're not going to spit in it, are you?
No, I'm going to mix them up.
Not only is he mixing it up with his eyes open, he did just hear what you heard. Have a listen again.
You're not going to spit in it, are you?
Again, giving you insight into the Tory party, but also the bullying culture that must have been taking place for him to say that.
So there is a spoon incoming.
Lovely.
Open your mouth.
Okay.
Here comes a train. What do you think for that one?
Well, they're cold. I'm not coming back to this pub for food.
Well, dodgy landlord.
Yes, you just heard right. He has just slagged off this pub owner who's allowed them to film inside the pub
Dodgy landlord.
for having shit food, and that he won't be coming back. Honestly, this is just absolute crackpot crazy. And even after having those baked beans served to him, Lee asked this question.
Do you do food here?
Back to the baked bean eating, where they attempt some comedy through trying to give it some sort of wine analysis.
What do you think that one is okay?
It's kind of a nutty twang. It's a kind of a 1984
Yeah, a good
kind
bouquet.
of feel to it. A good bouquet, very fluffy.
Yeah, a cheeky one.
Cheeky one, a little bit dry.
Okay.
Please do not get into stand-up, but also note how his facial reaction is as he's eating this. He is disgusted by it.
And then,
It's a very plain, very flat taste, very
and then the third
very
one.
neutral.
Because we've got to crack on. Incoming.
You ready? Here comes the airplane.
Instead of joy, though, we just see suffering.
Well, I've just had a glass of water before this, and I think that was probably stronger than those beans that I've just tasted.
So 1, 2, or 3, which is the best one?
Well, 3 that I've just had, certainly the weakest one. Not a big fan of that at all. Number 2, I thought was pretty good, actually. Number 1, bit too much sauce, maybe there's some sugar in it or something. It's a bit too much. So I'm going to go for number 2, Lee.
Oh, you'll be pleased to know, Brandon, that is a Co-op brand. So actually, there was a lot of merit in what you said when you made the comment about buying cheaper brands.
Was there? Because to me, it just looked like he was absolutely disgusted. we're on to our final piece. As you can tell, Lee is funny, but not laugh with, laugh at Lee. And Lee got a famous actress from the 90s, at least within Britain, who starred in a comedy called 'Allo 'Allo. Lee clearly had some sort of crush on her, as you could tell during the interview and through some of the comments that he made. But that wasn't the point I'm going to focus on. More, it's about the comedy that was involved and how they were complaining about how comedy is today.
I think we all have the facility to laugh at ourselves. And I think that if you're watching comedy should be to let you laugh out loud. And I think people should be able to choose. If people want to choose, then they can choose what to watch or not. And I always say, well, if you think it's politically incorrect or something, don't watch.
What Vicky seems to be thinking is acceptable is that if it makes you laugh and it's racist, then it's fine.
I think they've banned that, haven't they?
Have they?
Little Britain.
Little Britain.
Yeah, they've banned that.
Yeah,
it's banned that.
I think they should just ban everything.
The reason they banned that is because it showed blackface, white people dressing up as black people. And again, it shows their level of knowledge of history. Back in the 1920s, especially in the United States, there was racial prejudice put on African Americans to be able to get on stage and therefore limiting their ability. So much so, they actually had white people pretend to be black. As you can tell, the comedy in general throughout this program has been laugh at Lee.
If your boy, oldest boy, I know he's at school now, Henry, if he came home and says, "Dad, I'm a cat," how would you handle that?
Well, I mean, to be honest, he came home last week and we were having that conversation that no parent really wants to have. He asked me to buy him a Liverpool shirt. And I said the Heinz was the worst one.
Yeah, that carried a lot of weight, so...
well, so do I nowadays, but...
James O'Brien, he's impersonating a radio presenter.
Considering Lee and his crew probably had a week in which to film and edit this, they've produced total garbage. And yet I've been able to take the best bits and show that the production value and the entertainment value and the fact that he slags off people and brings on people that slag him off is just gold. As a call to action, I would love it if everyone would share and like and subscribe to this video. Not for me, but for the fact I'd love to ratio it and show Lee up as much as possible. Once again, thank you to all my supporters. Your help, your money, helps this channel keep on going and growing. And to all of those of you last week who bought me a coffee for my other videos. Thanks again. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.